Welcome to the Fearlessly Authentic Sash and Soul podcast, the show that goes beyond the stage, prioritizing a healthy mindset, overall well-being, and triumphs in the pageant journey. In each episode, we dive into the transformative power of embracing authenticity fearlessly.
From mindset mastery and self-care strategies to success stories that inspire, this podcast is your go-to guide for navigating the pageant world with confidence and resilience. Join us as we embark on a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and celebrate the stories of those who fearlessly embraced their authenticity on the path to pageant success. I'm Lila Sherry.
And I'm Rayanna Johnson. Welcome to Sash and Soul.
Good morning.
Hey, everyone. Hi. Hi, Lila.
Hi. Hi, Ray.
That was really high pitched. Hi. Hi. Oh,
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you.
Were you about to say that?
I was. Yeah. Great minds and nice people think alike. Gosh, how are you? Fill me in on your life right now.
My life right now. What is it, April? I'm excited because next week I'm heading to Dallas for a wedding. It's like the first official vacation I've taken in like over a year. So I'm so excited to get out of Wisconsin, to see some warm weather, to watch one of my former coworkers get married. That'll be really fun. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like we can get through this weekend. I have another wedding this weekend too. So it's kind of crazy wedding season, but fun. I'm excited. What's going on in your life?
Well, I'm still doing kind of the tail end of crazy spring cleaning and purging like 75% of the stuff in my house that I just don't need and don't want to deal with anymore. It's been over a month of doing this project. It's been ongoing and it's busy season in Fearlessly Authentic. We're coming up on, you guys, if you could see my calendar for June, it's crazy how many competitions are coming up in June. So I'm really excited for that. Like it's very buzzy in the program right now and just in the pageant world in general. So ramp it up for that. And then I get out of Dodge too in a couple of weeks. I'm going to Vegas with my husband. So
Yay.
yeah, we're gonna go see if Lady Luck is on our side.
Fun. Good luck to everyone competing in June.
Yeah.
Have fun. Good luck.
Let us know where you're at. Like, we really want to hear like who's listening to us right now. What are you preparing for? What are you competing in? And like, how's it going? Like, send us a DM. I want to know. Give me the tea. Just kidding. I don't want the drama. I just really want to know like how awesome you're doing.
Yeah, to clarify, T, we don't want drama.
No, we don't want drama.
Take that out of the DMs.
That's right.
Well, okay, competition, a lot of competition. Everybody that competes thinks about one thing, which is
interview. Dun dun dun.
I remember that was always my biggest thing. Anytime anybody was working with me or I went to go work with somebody, interview, can we do interview? Can we do interview? I was that person. And I know a lot of us are because it feels like the one thing that we can't control, but I think there's a lot that we can work on that will help.
Oh, yeah. So today we're going to talk just basic stuff about interview. For those of you that are brand new, this is great for you to hear. For those of you that have been in the game for a while, it's also good to hear, just like going back to the basics a little bit. And the thing that I want to emphasize in this whole conversation with you today is mindset is 80% of your success in everything that you do. So we are going to really point out the mindset pieces in the do's and don'ts so that you have a better perspective of what you're focusing on. And then the skills and practice of it is 20%. So when I've got people reaching out to me for Fearlessly Authentic and coaching, it's like interview. And quickly we get to, all right, well, there's certain things that we're going to talk about with skills and actually practice within interview. But your interview prep with me is majority going to be mindset work. And it's fun because you see such a significant shift in not only the skills and the confidence, but in the comfortability with themselves as they're going through the process. Can we get started first? I want to know when you first started loving interview because there is a moment when you go from being freaked out by it to loving it.
Honestly, it was probably when I joined Miss America. I started liking interview a lot more my first year at Miss Wisconsin. And that's the first time that I can remember actually liking it because I was fresh out of my teenage years. And I remember I you couldn't force me to like interview for money growing up. Like I just couldn't handle it. But yeah, I would say I started to like it my first year at Miss Wisconsin in the Miss America organization. And then, of course, when I met you and we actually started working on mindset work, it became it just became easy to like it. Like I always wanted to like interview. I never wanted to be that person that was super nervous about interview. And I wasn't nervous about interview growing up, but I wanted to like it so much more. And then when I felt that control and when I felt like control over myself and how I was feeling, right? I don't mean control over the interview, but control over my nerves going into a room, feeling like I knew what the job was, all of that really very quickly it was like, what is there to not like about interview?
Yeah. I think for me, I was terrified of interview when I was 17 and just getting started in competition. I loved public speaking. That part wasn't so crazy for me. But the interview piece, and I recognize like in hindsight, a lot of it was a lack of confidence in what I knew about the world and just being afraid of being asked questions about current events or political issues or honestly, back in 2007, we were still doing a whole lot of the prepping for an interview as if it was going to be exams because they would quiz you on the representatives' names of, your local jurisdiction and like all this different stuff. So it was a lot more like studying for it back then than it is now. At least in MAO, it's a lot more conversational. I know it's very conversational in USA. Volunteer America is really focused on service and what you're bringing to the table as a member of your community and a citizen of the country. Each system has a little bit different focus depending on what the job looks like. But back then, it was Miss America was pretty hardcore in terms of interview, 10 minutes of you don't know what they're going to ask you. And it was very scary. Um, so it was partly that. And then the other part was really just not knowing myself at 17 and having not worked through a lot of my trauma and all this other stuff going on. But it was a couple years in after going through mock interviews that made me cry and then getting to a point where I knew myself better, had a better understanding of how I felt about things in the world. A lot of this was just personal growth and like going to college and learning those critical thinking skills that you learn in college. And I started to really enjoy talking about issues that I cared about because I had a better understanding of them. And then it was when I started working with my communication coach where I really learned the skills and techniques to have a conversational interview. That's when I was just like, all right, everything's great here on out. I still have nerves. I still get like really excited and like that antsiness before interview, but I was like, nope, I know exactly how I'm handling myself. And it was just really liberating.
I like that you made that point, and I want to touch on this before we get into everything else. Age is such a big part of it. Age is such a huge factor. Your life experience is such a huge factor. We can only say so much as people who know on this end what it's like. But in order for you to really get it, you have to go through experiences, you have to go through life. And that a lot of that does come with age. Some people go through it earlier than others, but give yourself grace too. If you're a teen, I just think about the teen girlies that I've mentored for a few years now. I've seen them grow infinitely. And that's not all because of me. It's because of their growth as young teenagers. So I really want to emphasize that fact is that yes, we can say things all day, day in and day out. And these things really do help. Like these things are, I'm a testament to that. I went to Miss America because of this. But as a result, also know that a lot of it comes from you and your life experiences. And so take with this what you wish, give yourself grace in the process of listening to all of these things, especially if you're a younger girl, if there are teens listening to us right now. Know that your life experience will be so, so beneficial in all of this as well. So be patient and give yourself grace before we get into all of this.
And don't obsess over the pageant. Don't make the pageant your life because you're not going to grow as a human being in multiple facets of who you are if you're just focusing on the one thing. So be involved in different things, meet different people, explore opportunities outside of pageantry, because that's truly like you grow that way.
And as much as we are a pageant podcast, there's so much more in life. There's so much more to succeed in. And again, I'm going to say it now, and I know we've said it multiple times, but people need to hear it. Although it's a pageant podcast, the lessons and the skills that we're talking about can be applied to every woman, every guy out there. I think this is important. Anyways, let's actually get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. Okay. So, keeping in mind the foundation of this mindset is 80% of your success, skills and practice is 20% as we go through this list. So, let's start with the do's. We're talking about the do's and don'ts of interview today. What are the do's? I want you, Lila, to share the first couple of points because these are things that you and I worked on immediately when we first met and you were in the Fearlessly Authentic program.
Knowing yourself and your inner qualities, first and foremost, is important, not just in interview, but in your life. I mean, traits, values, your morals, why you do the things that you do, where you've come from, maybe your family story, your family history, that was big for me. And so knowing who you are, but also most importantly, why you are the way that you are, to me creates almost this shield of armor. And we're not shielding ourselves from anything in interview, but you give yourself this undeniable confidence, and it's a humble confidence when you walk into a room knowing who you are, because when you're secure with that and you're secure with, I know I am dedicated, I know I would be a dedicated title holder, I know that I'm hardworking, I know I would be a hardworking title holder, these are my plans, XYZ, these are the things I'm already doing because I value these things in my life, and I know that I'd be able to bring that to the organization. I mean, it all comes full circle when you know who you are and what you bring to the table. You become, what you say and what you think becomes undeniable because that authenticity shines through, but also that confidence.
I want to elaborate on everything that you're saying. So when we know who we are in our inner qualities, there it's an innate knowing. You don't have to memorize that. And so often I'm working with clients that struggle with articulating their thoughts, and it's often because they're thinking too much or wanting to say something perfectly. But when you have a clear understanding of something, so think about some topic that you are incredibly passionate about and you could talk about for hours without even thinking about it or preparing any kind of speech. Right? Like Lila, you could talk about communications and broadcasting and journalism for hours. You could also talk about your life growing up as a first generation Chinese American. There's so much that you just innately know because you know yourself, you know your own story. So that eliminates already some of the anxiety of how you're going to say things or what you're going to talk about when they ask certain questions. Because if you know you and you know the defining characteristics of what makes you who you are, you're that much more powerful. I really love what you were talking about with your intentions. When you know your morals, your values, you can then have a clear idea of like what your intentions are. When you know your intentions, when you know your morals and values and you practice living by those things every single day, you can release any kind of comparison or fear of what others may think of you because you are owning your own intentions. You know yourself that well. So I think you can probably already start to piece together why this is so essential and why, in this particular mindset work of knowing who you are, knowing your intentions, why this is 80% of your success. Because so often it's the fear of what other people are thinking, meaning the judges, fear of what they're going to score you, and comparing yourself to anybody else that might be going in that room before or after you. When you can release those things and just be yourself, I mean, all that's left is for them to just decide whether or not you're ready for the job.
None of the other stuff works to its fullest potential or really even matters. I mean, your initiative, sometimes people think that's the most important part. You guys, as Miss Wisconsin, I've maybe done 30% of this year focused on my initiative. And even then, you start to realize that there are so many other things. So all of the all of the mindset stuff is the foundation to success in everything else when it comes to interview. So yes.
I also hear people talking about wanting to develop their brand and figure out what their brand is. And my response is always, you don't have to develop a brand or create a brand. You are a brand. You just have to figure out what that is.
Yes, thank you. People think I'm crazy because I've gotten that question actually a couple times, and recently I worked with somebody on this and they were like, my brand, and they're in a transitional period of like teenager to adulthood. And I asked them, I was like, "Well, who do you think you are?" And I think they were a little bit taken aback because they're thinking, "Well, on paper this is what I want and then this is what I'm trying to be." It's like, "No. What do you already have? What do you have going on?" Okay, there you go. Like that's all it is. And it
Mhm.
was so simple. And I think it felt a little silly to be so simple, but it's true. It is true. And the people that have strong brands simply have a strong sense of self. And those two things go hand in hand.
Absolutely. Point well made. Okay, what's the next do?
Eliminate limiting beliefs. I almost got tongue-tied there. Eliminate
Mm,
limiting beliefs. Say that 10 times fast.
right.
Perfectionism is a huge one for me. Perfectionism is something that I struggled with my whole life. I probably still struggle a lot with it now, especially as a title holder and as a media personality in the public eye. This is kind of ingrained into the basis of a lot of what we do. We think it is, and it starts to come out in a lot of different ways when we are in the public eye. And it can be the biggest barrier to just doing, to just being action focused. And I realized that trying to combat perfectionism does not mean trying to combat being good at things, does not mean trying to not reach your goals, right? Because I took my perfectionism as like a badge of honor. I thought it was this awesome thing that was my strong suit. And it really just, there creates perfectionism creates a lot of anxiety around action. And action, messy, massive action, like we always talk about, is one of the most important combats to not only feeling anxious, but ultimately reaching the goals that you want to reach. You don't have to take perfect steps, you just have to do things. And sometimes perfectionism can really get in the way of that. So that's one limiting belief. Another example is being self critical, just being the first to, I don't want to say laugh at yourself, being the first to criticize yourself. I do that as a defense mechanism a lot, and I did growing up because to me, if I said something bad about myself first, no, it didn't matter who else said anything bad about myself because I said it first. I was mean to myself first. Come on, you guys. Talk to yourself like you're yourself's best friend. I mean, why would we be mean to ourselves? There's no reason. A, because it's probably not true. And if it is, we can own that. But most of the time, it's probably not true. And second of all, we never know what other people are thinking of us, anyways. There have been so many times where I've been pleasantly surprised by something that I thought was annoying or too many posts on social media or blah, blah, blah. And it's been good 99% of the time in response. So you never really know what people are thinking of you. And all these things are really just barriers.
Other limiting beliefs that are really common include fear of not being smart enough, thinking that you're not talented enough, thinking that you haven't accomplished as much as somebody else that may be competing. So there's that comparison. One of my limiting beliefs that I really struggled with for a long time was because I was so vulnerable and transparent about my mental health and grief journey. I was afraid that for some reason the judges would see me as less capable of doing the job because of that struggle that I had, which contributes so much, you guys, to stigma and not actually reaching out for help when you are struggling. And I think what we're finding more and more is that the people that do struggle are actually some of the strongest people that we could ever meet and have the most impact because they act through the understanding and knowing of human struggles. So there's a lot more to limiting beliefs. There's a whole breakdown of limiting beliefs, and we could spend multiple episodes talking about them. But when you can eliminate those limiting beliefs and turn to accurate beliefs and perspectives of who you are, where you came from, maybe why you made some mistakes in the past, and then take some action into improving yourself if some of those limiting beliefs are kind of triggered because of some level of truth behind it. Because, like, let's say you have a limiting belief about not really knowing or understanding everything that's going on in the world. You have control of that. Do some research, start slowly inundating yourself with more information and having conversations with people so you can better understand what's going on in the world. And then when you start taking action, you start feeling better. So, just to recap really quick before we move on is, your inner qualities, your traits, your values and morals, knowing who you are, that's all going to help you eliminate those limiting beliefs and get to some accurate beliefs. The more you know yourself, the more that you can have grace for yourself, the more that you can overcome these things that you tell yourself just to bring yourself down. Or what's worse is limiting beliefs are just meant to protect you from disappointment or failure. And all of that stuff is just keeping you from truly going after your dreams.
We've gotten through failure or disappointment every single time before, so there's no reason why we wouldn't this time. Moving on.
Yes.
The rest of the dues are skill-based.
These are the things that we practice. These are the things that we can work on daily, that we're always just continually improving. So the first one is knowing your initiative. What are the goal, your initiative or community service program, whatever platform, whatever you call it, knowing what your goals are and why, just really knowing it inside and out. And if you are concerned about understanding social issues or current events, start with anything related to your personal initiative or community service program, because in the judging panel, they're probably going to be asking you things more closely related to getting to know who you are and what you know based on what you're passionate about. So, knowing your initiative inside and out, the things that are happening surrounding that topic right now in the country, in the world, locally. And aside from initiative as well, like depending on what you're going to school for or what your future career looks like, having an understanding of anything related to that as well is really important. So a lot of that is just educating yourself, doing your research and staying on top of things. The next is knowing the job that you're interviewing for. Lila, we talked about this a lot. It's something I talk about so much with my clients because we're focused on the big picture. We're focused on not just the crowning moment, but what comes after that 365 days of doing the job. So, can you speak to what you did for yourself to truly understand what the job of Miss Wisconsin looked like so you knew what job you were interviewing for?
Yeah, I had gone through multiple different systems that are all very different. And so by the time I got to the Miss America organization, I realized that the Miss Wisconsin job and title specifically looked really different from a lot of the other systems that I had been in for the past few years. So, and I also wasn't one of the competitors who had grown up in the Miss America organization. There's a lot of girls that started when they were preteens in princess programs and crown camps, and then they became a teen and competed their whole life, was a teen title holder, and then now they got to Miss, and they have all these different connections and relationships with people in the Miss America organization. That just wasn't me. And so when I knew I wanted to become Miss Wisconsin and ultimately do a good job as Miss Wisconsin, because I knew that when I became Miss Wisconsin for the Miss America organization and I had a chance to go to Miss America, that's where I would end. That's it. And I knew that was the end of my road. So, knowing all of these things, talking with formers, talking with people who have been in the same shoes as you, talking with even other local title holders who have simply been around in the organization a lot of networking, a lot of learning, a lot of making connections and picking things up along the way, but also wanting to make it unique to me. So as much as we know the job that we're interviewing for when it comes to the logistics of it, what it's looked like historically, what people's general experiences have been, also not losing sight of the fact that your year will look different than every single other woman's year before you. So it's kind of a balance of, do I know the organization? Do I know what the job looks like after this? What are the main priorities? What are things that I might have to sacrifice or give up? Or what are things that I'm going to have to buckle down and get down to and do a lot more of? Knowing that, okay, cool. We have that down. But then also, how is this year going to be unique when it comes to you as an individual? And so I was balancing both kind of at the same time.
And I think it's important to note that there are certain titles that come with more responsibilities than others. So some of you may be doing a lot more research than others, just given whatever system that you're competing in. And it's also important to note that this is just good skills for any kind of interview that you're ever going to have, is having a real understanding of the job is important because you need to know if you even want the job. And it's the same with competing for a title, especially with a very involved title like in the Miss America or Miss USA system or Miss Volunteer America, where you are really, and I know there are other systems out there too. Those are just the first three that come to my head. So forgive me if I'm skipping over like a important system to any of you. I don't mean to, but the point remains like knowing the job and whether or not you even want it. And it's interesting because I had a conversation with a client recently who said, like, well, everyone wants to win, right? Doesn't everyone want to have the job? And I said, no. I have plenty of clients that come to me and they want to have an incredible experience. They want to feel good about themselves. They want to develop skills. They want to earn scholarship money, but they don't want to do the job. And that's okay. There's a lot that go to Miss America, Miss USA that don't actually want to win the national title. And I'm sure to some people who do want that are like, how could you never like how could you not want that? Well, like it's truly not for everyone. And that's the point of like getting a realistic job preview of what you're potentially getting into. And the thing is, you won't know everything. Everyone's going to have different experiences within their year. My experience as Miss Wisconsin is different than Lila's. It's different than Grace Stanke's when before she became Miss America, right? Like everyone's going to have different experiences, but the more that you can know about the ins and outs of the jobs, the highs and lows, the better prepared you're going to be for that interview and for the job, which is your big picture. Which leads to the next point, which is having a conversation with those judges. Absolute must. There are three things that I tell my clients before interview. You are who you are. You're not trying to fit a mold. You know your mission, you know your big picture, you know your why. And number three, it is your goal to have a conversation with those judges, which is so essential. So, one of the things that I encourage is think about how you would act as a title holder, like with the title going into a press conference or a luncheon, and you are just having a conversation with 5 to 7 friendly people sitting right in front of you that genuinely just want to get to know who you are, what you're about. And I get that there's more high stakes pressure when you are competing and you're actually in an interview for a job, but the approach should still remain. Show the judges who you would be with that crown on your head so that you build a relationship with them and build some trust so that they could see you doing the job. You win it an interview in that way, and then you seal the deal on stage to showcase that you've got everything else prepared as well to show up and show out as the title holder.
One of my judges, we've remained in contact throughout my time at Miss America, and I've heard multiple times from him that we weren't looking for anything in particular. There wasn't a piece of paper saying this bachelor's degree or this many years of experience or this many titles. There was that doesn't exist for judges. They were like, we wanted somebody that we could trust to get up every day and be able to do this job. Where we were just going to be watching through social media. We would have no say in this. We wouldn't be able to help you, but we wanted to be able to trust you. And until we trusted somebody completely with this title, that's who it would go to. And that always stuck out to me because I didn't realize that really until the week that I had won Miss Wisconsin. But far beyond that, again, it applies to any job interview, right? They're not looking for somebody with XYZ per se. They want to trust you with the job ultimately that they're going to be giving you. That applies in title holders, that applies with companies. It's all kind of the same gist. So yeah, I think the best thing that you could do is not walking into that room thinking you are already the title holder, but what kind of a title holder would you be? Who would you be with the crown on your head? Because quite frankly, 10 minutes is a long time to get to know somebody because when you're on the job as Miss Wisconsin, you get sometimes 30 seconds to make an impression and then you walk away and you never see that person again. And so 10 minutes is a long time to be able to showcase who you would be as a title holder. Use those moments. That's such a gift to be able to have that time with the judges and have fun with it. That's what I want to say. As simple as that can sound, have fun with the fact that you are showing who you would be as a title holder. We don't get to do this as business women, as corporate women, wherever you lie on the spectrum, whatever work you do. We don't get to do fun stuff like this all the time. So take a part of that and have fun with it while showcasing who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to wrap up the do's section of the interview do's and don'ts, to just kind of piggyback off of what you were saying, Lila, is like check off the boxes of all the skills and the expectations of the job, do all the things to get ready, all those tangible things. And then all that's left is to showcase your personality and to keep in mind that every single one of the contestants or candidates may come to the table with all the boxes checked. And so then at the end of the day, I mean, what the judges are looking for is kind of out the window because everyone has what the judges are looking for. Also, I don't really believe in the like what the judges are looking for. What
Right.
particularly when someone says, well, says, well, I must not be what the judges were looking for. Well, I'm going to tell you, as having judged, we're not looking for anything. Like, we just want to see, like Lila was saying, like, who can we trust to do this job? Who builds a relationship? Who do we see that is building genuine impressions of themselves and of this organization in a limited amount of time. So it's not about what the judges are looking for. You guys check the boxes, be fully prepared, know what you're getting yourself into, know why you're there, and then just release it and be conversational and yourself. And that sounds so simplified. I get it, but there are, I want to caveat to this, there are skills, like the basic communication skills that you need to also be utilizing. But once those skills are mastered, you got to let the rest go. No thinking, just react and just be present as if you're having a conversation with a best friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that you touched on not walking in there thinking you are the only one that can do the job. It's funny because Logan would always ask me this all my years that he's known me competing and also at Miss America. He would say, if I needed to get in check mindset wise, do you respect yourself? Yes, absolutely. Do you respect your competitors? Yeah, of course. Cool. Then you have nothing to worry about. And that to me is that respecting your competition is so big because knowing dang well that there are multiple women, quite frankly, that they could probably trust to do the job. And so having that humble confidence of, if you pick me, I'm ready. If you trust me, I'm ready. But also know that there are multiple women around you, more than multiple, that are fully capable of doing that job. So I want to round out the do's by making a point of that because I like that you brought that up and that popped into my head. But there are also so many more do's like
Oh,
on
yeah.
this list. We're just for the sake of time. Thank you all for listening, but we're trying to keep it moving. So all of that is kind of what we think is most important for this episode. But there's so much more. There's so much more. There's always so much more.
Okay, let's dive into the don'ts.
Okay.
We are going to dive into the skills and practice of the don'ts first. And I'm going to go through them pretty quickly because we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on them. The first point is don't say, this is actually a pet peeve of many judges. Don't say, thank you for that question, or that's a great question. And please, 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 for the love of all that is good, don't repeat the question. Answer the question directly. There is no need to say the question first. It is not a high school or college essay where you have to repeat, like, state the question and the answer. Nope, that's not it. You don't do that in normal everyday conversation. So please don't do that in your interview. And I know that that's a big habit to break.
You know what it sounds like is you sound like AI. You sound like an AI generated human robot when you do any of these things. So like yeah, I mean and it wastes time. That's another thing. Precious moments, precious seconds. I know systems who have less than 1 minute per judge for an interview. Let's get through it. We don't care about what the question was. Chances are they might not even know what the question was by the time you're done talking. They just want to hear you talk. So yeah, don't waste that time. Simple, just don't say it.
Next, don't. This is a huge pet peeve of mine when I hear people say that. Don't try to control the interview. I'm going to repeat that. Do not try to control the interview. Lila has alluded to this. Be in control of yourself. That's literally all you can control. Have your pure positive intentions. Know what your why is. Know what you want to experience in that room, what your goals are. But do not try to control the interview. And what we mean by that is oftentimes I've heard coaches or volunteers. To me, this is a little bit more of an old school approach to preparing for interview. I'm just going to throw that out there. But people will say, like, depending on how you answer the question, like the little like things that you say will lead into a next question. So you want to lead the interview by giving them little snippets so that they'll ask you a follow-up question about that so that you can talk about exactly what you want to talk about. Or the other thing, every chance that you have, make sure that you're talking about your platform or your initiative. Nope. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. It's I
That
be
sounds that sounds like way too much thinking. I'm sorry, but that is way too much going on in your head. It's way too much strategy, way too much in the moment trying to fix things or to do things. When you're thinking about that during your answer will crash and burn. You won't know where to end. You're not going to know what you said. You're probably going to forget what the question was. Do you always have control over what you say in response to an answer? Absolutely. You can take that answer where you want to take it because you are in control of what you say, right? If somebody asks you, tell me about yourself, say what you want to say. But when it comes to trying to set yourself up for the next question, trying to allude to anything, to try and get them to ask you anything, that's never worked for me in an interview. I've really never tried that, but I can see where people have tried to do that. And it's funny because any mock panel or any judging panel, they could go from being like, what's your favorite food to what do you think about the gun laws happening right now? There is no sense of if they ask you this, they will ask that. Or if you say this, they will ask that. There have been times where I walk out of an interview being like, wow, those judges hit everything that I wanted to talk about. I didn't do that. I had a great panel who knew what they wanted to ask me. There have also been times where I've walked out of a judging panel and have been like, that was actually nothing that I wanted to talk about, but I think they got to know me. And those have been some of my best interviews. So that strategy of like it gives me anxiety just thinking about it because why would you want to think so much?
it gives slimy politician for me.
Mm,
Don't be a slimy politician in your pageant interview, please.
right.
It's gross.
Know your initiative, know who you are, know your plans as a title holder, but you don't have to set yourself up to talk about those things.
Right. And I've heard too, because I'll ask, like, what is your intention for interview to my clients? And they'll say, well, I really want the judges to see who I am and to know who I am. And the thing is, you guys, the judges will not get to know you because you tell them who you are. They're going to get to know you by what, like, how you handle yourself and showing them who you are. So the other part that is problematic and when you're trying to control the interview or spinning questions or your answers into things that you want to talk about, or like the other thing I've heard of is like have a bullet point of 10 things you want to make sure that you get across in that interview, or like make sure that you say a certain number of stats, like all these things. The judges aren't going to remember the stuff that you're saying anyway, but they are going to feel it if you are like not really directly answering their question or showcasing your true personality or being vulnerable or authentic in that interview because you're trying to control it and trying to make sure that you get every single point out that you want to. It's just not that helpful and it's not impressive as a judge. There's a disconnect.
They don't remember it anyways. You could be so
Mhm.
strategic with every single answer, but if they saw that you were thinking and on edge the whole time, that's what they're going to remember.
Mhm. Exactly. Okay, let's bookend this conversation the way that we started with some of the mindset stuff. So, what are the mindset don'ts? The first one is this is tricky, not worrying about the reactions of the judges,
Mm,
right? Like, there is no way of knowing what the judges are thinking. I had a judge who I thought absolutely hated me in an interview. He was just badgering me with follow up question after follow up question about a pretty politically um, charged point in conversation. I really thought he hated me, but when I talked to him afterwards, he told me he gave me a perfect score. So you just don't know what the judges are thinking. You have to remember that the judges are human beings. they are probably already in their own heads trying to come up with the right questions for you. I can tell you as a judge, like sometimes I've said a question and I'm like, oh my gosh, please ask me to repeat that because that didn't make any sense, right? Like the judges are also human. So there's tell them what you said about judges before interview.
What did I say about judges before?
You say, I don't remember exactly how it went, but it was something like, we all eat, we all sleep, we all poop.
Yeah. I don't
I
mean
said
this.
poop on our podcast.
I don't mean this to sound uppity in any way, but I'm not I fangirl over a few celebrities, but I'm not much of like a oh my God, they're so much bigger than anybody else. Here's a good example, and this is when I realized this is, have any of you guys, you watched a competition or you competed in a competition and the judging panel was sitting there? And then the competition is over, the lights come up, everybody starts taking pictures on stage, and the judging panel walks up on stage and they're all kind of mingling within themselves and they're not judging anymore and they're relaxed and they're standing around for photos. Have you ever looked at them and been like, wow, not to be disrespectful, but like I wouldn't pick you out of a crowd specifically because you were a judge. Like it's not, I mean, we just put this scary idea that because they're sitting behind this desk that they somehow have all this power or somehow know all these things that we don't. Like, again, I don't mean any disrespect by this, but like if I was sitting on a judging panel, like I would be no different than who I am sitting here right now. And I actually brought up to one of my judges, like, oh, you were the scary one. You were so scary. And he was like, well, I had to keep a straight face because that was the only thing that I knew I could do for everyone. Not that I didn't
Mm.
want to react, but because if I was smiling at this person and then I was really focused on this person, like that wouldn't be fair to anybody, right? And I'm like, well, that's a great point. So know that it probably has nothing to do with you. And sometimes judges are sitting through hours and hours and hours and days and days and days and weeks of stuff. You know, they're probably exhausted. And you know what? There are times where I just want to sit there with a blank look on my face too. Like it is just, it's not that deep, you guys. And yeah, if you can imagine every one of your judges, they're going to go home. They're going to, I imagine like judges being on their phones. I don't know why that creates a very comforting image to me, but like them just like going on their phones or like calling a loved one, like that image is very comforting to me. So,
You're personifying them.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes the judges are actually instructed not to react
Yes.
as well. So I think that's something that a lot of people don't know, but I've sat through quite a few judges' orientations and they are instructed to not react, not show favoritism by like smiling too much or like even smiling or like reacting when you're watching someone on stage because families can misinterpret, contestants can misinterpret reactions like that. So this is again where it's the work, it's the mindset work of trying to disconnect your emotions and fears from what you're seeing in front of you um in the reactions of the judges. Okay.
Sorry, wait. I have to say this. Or another little tip that I would always use, especially this past year competing for Miss Wisconsin and at Miss America. Every time I'd step on stage and I'd see the judges and their straight faces, I'd think in my head, these are my best friends. I'm just gonna go and hang out with my best friends. They're a little bit serious, but they're my best friends. And if you have that warmth on your end, it doesn't matter what they're feeling, how they're feeling. You'll make them feel comfortable. You make the judges feel comfortable. Be the hostess with the mostest to the judges. They're not there to make you feel comfortable. That's your job, right? Invite somebody into your home in that way. Like they're probably nervous, they're anxious. So I wanted to touch on that before we move on here quickly, but treat them like they're your guests in your home.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Okay, and finally, not finally, you guys are so much more. But the final point that we want to make today is I had said it before. You are who you are. You're not trying to fit a mold or be what you think the judges are looking for or what it looks like or, what the title holder behaves like. You're not trying to be that. You mold the title into who you are. So show up knowing who you are, show up having released a lot of those limiting beliefs and those fears, and be present. I say, like, I think I've said it on the podcast before, but I heard Brene Brown, um, researcher, speaker, author extraordinaire, say that when she walks into a room, she has a mantra of like, don't puff up, don't shrink down, stay in your sacred space. And so I have that visualization of like, if you walk into an interview room, you're not trying to be impressive, you're not trying to puff up, you're not trying to show perfectionism or be somebody that you're not, and you're not trying to like humble yourself to the point where you're small or afraid to talk about yourself in a powerful way. You are going to stand right where you stand behind that podium or sit in that chair in your own sacred space of knowing exactly who you are, that you are prepared for the job, you're capable of the job, you're worthy of it. And your whole goal is to just be present and have a lovely experience in that room with those judges.
I think it's a misconception. I guess I can only speak on what I've seen, and I haven't experienced every state and every system, so I don't know this. But when girls will say, well, these types of women have been crowned these the past years, or this is what they're looking for, or A, that's probably a limiting belief that you couldn't be the title holder, but B, it doesn't matter. It's different people picking. Chances are the organization may have changed. There's a lot of changes happening in a lot of different organizations right now. And this idea that because you've seen brunette girls be crowned the last 3 years, that you have to be a brunette, like it's just excuses, honestly, to not focus on things that you can actually control. And so this mold that we think certain systems are looking for, or that might be true because you are an ambassador for their system, but when it comes to like specifics on who's been crowned and what they look like in the past few years, like that's A, stuff that you cannot control, and that's not going to be any beneficial to you preparing for a competition. And B, it almost gives you the out to throw in the towel and not focus on what you can control. So yeah, don't try and fit a mold. There is no mold. There really isn't. And especially more and more in this day and age, we're seeing so many more different groups represented. We need more of that, but we are getting to a point where we're seeing a lot of changes with different demographics being represented locally and nationally in a lot of different competitions. So why would you give yourself that excuse? You know?
Right. I think to sum it up, when it comes to interview and when it comes to mindset, you have to disconnect the outcome from your own worth. Your worth as a human being, your worthiness is not equated to external success and accomplishment. You're worthy just the way you are. You're amazing just the way that you are. And whether or not you win a competition and have a crown on your head at the end of the day has nothing to do with your worthiness. And if you can see yourself as worthy, then you can look at everyone else around you and see them as worthy too, and disconnect any level of comparison because you think that somehow they're more worthy than you, when that's just not the case. We are all beautiful human beings with our own journeys, our own experiences, our own inner qualities, passions, goals, interests, talents, all the things. So disconnect your worthiness, your sense of self from the outcome because it's just two completely different universes.
I love that. And I want to end on this is that I have said multiple times this year to multiple different groups of women, there's this common misconception that you can be good at pageants, that you can be really good at pageants as a sport, as if it were basketball or as if it were a piano competition. Your interview is a way to showcase the things that you are already doing, the person that you already are. You just get this really beautiful space where people are hearing you and they're listening to you and you're showcasing the parts of you that are already there. You're not you're not going to be good at an interview because you're doing all these skills, like showcase what you already have to offer. Because I'm a firm believer that nobody is going to be quote unquote good at pageants. That's why we say that it's a crapshoot. That's why we say different judges, different day. Showcase what you're doing. That is where you get to a point where you eliminate a lot of like the self-criticism or perfectionism or comparison or this feeling of unworthiness, because there is nothing about pageantry that you can do specifically that makes you good at pageantry unless it's, say, like very focused on walking, okay, like those skill-based things. But when we're talking about pageantry as a whole, why is it that some people do well in certain systems and not others, right? Like you can't, it's not stats like a football game or basketball. Like we're just showcasing who we are as women. And that's my biggest takeaway when it comes to interview prep and interview success, is that when I was able to recognize what I was already doing and all of the things that created who I am and all of the beautiful reasons why I would be a good title holder, not because I've seen other title holders in the past and this is how I'm similar to them, but how I would be a good title holder. That's when that's when I felt on top of the world, and that's when I loved interview, and that's when I felt like I was the most successful. So that's my
Right.
piece.
Right. So to wrap up, we've got all these do's and don'ts. The skill stuff is important. Your skills and practice is 20%. So we're talking avoiding any kind of filler words, reacting to the question, answering immediately, having really strong listening skills and articulation skills. All that stuff you can do through discipline and practice. But the more important piece, the thing that makes your interview that much more extraordinary, is knowing yourself and letting go of anything that would keep you from fully being that beautiful self in that room with those judges. So much more on this. We will talk about interview again and again because it's important. It's probably one of the most powerful aspects of being in pageantry in terms of future success in your life. And how many times have you been in a professional interview setting and they're just blown away by your interview skills and your articulation? And it's because we spend so much time working on those skills when we're preparing for a competition. So we'll talk about it more because it's obviously incredibly valuable and important to most all of us.
Yeah, that's all we have for today. Hopefully this was helpful. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you guys, take good care of yourselves. Dive into the depths of who you are, what makes you you, and what makes you awesome. And be well.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, you guys, if you love what you're hearing on Sash and Soul and you're preparing for a pageant competition, you have to check out our free online training, 3 Keys to Winning the Crown. In this game-changing workshop, you'll discover the secrets to owning the interview and the stage with a winning mindset and humble confidence. This transformative session will empower you to cultivate a fearlessly authentic mindset and learn how to embrace your unique strengths, conquer limiting beliefs, and radiate confidence on and off the stage. You'll master the art of communication and discover powerful strategies to captivate judges and audiences with your unique voice and message. Click the link in the episode summary or visit fearlesslyauthenticcoach.com to claim your spot in this complimentary training. Your journey to greatness starts here.